Hey everybody, my name is Matt Mitchell. I'm a senior producer with the Action Network, a sports gambling media company that specializes in data and analytics based in New York City. I am here in my very dreary Milwaukee basement. It's where I live because there's two small children sleeping upstairs, so apologies for how unattractive my background is. The only thing you need to know about me is that I used to drive the Wienermobile, and the only two things I care about, other than my family, blah, 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 is audio, great audio storytelling, and gambling on sports, which I have done virtually every single day since 2009. I love gambling. It's great. Now, I have been brought here before you guys to talk about gambling kind of at large and the state of sports gambling in America, give you some terms you should know, give you a quick overview. So here we go. Sports gambling in America is in the middle of a boom, and that is in large part due to the repeal of PASPA in 2018, May 2018. That was a 1992 law, the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, also called the Bradley Act, that effectively banned sports betting legally in every state but Nevada. It was pretty plainly unconstitutional and had a couple of legal battles over the years, but finally an effective one that ended with the Supreme Court overturning it in 2018, opening the doors for states to pass their own sports betting laws, which New Jersey did almost immediately, and many states have followed, to show the incredible thirst for sports gambling action. New Jersey beat Nevada in sports gambling revenue 5 of the last 12 months, despite being an operator for only a tiny fraction of the time. Nevada's been accepting sports betting wagers essentially as a monopoly since, I don't know, the 40s. So New Jersey overtook it pretty quickly just because the amount of individuals and money that people are willing to bet nationwide is enormous, and the legalization is terrific for a lot of reasons. The biggest reason is, and we're kind of talking about where sports gambling is going, is that there's an incredibly large black market for sports betting. People bet through their barbers, they bet through bookies. I bet offshore. There's plenty of people who find ways to bet on sports, the same way there are plenty of people who found ways to procure marijuana when that was illegal in most jurisdictions. When it comes to vice, people always find a way. So as of right now, in just less than 2 years, despite a reputation for moving incredibly slowly in general, state legislatures have legalized sports betting in 21 states and Washington, D.C. Virginia will likely become the 22nd state if the governor signs the passed legislation on his desk. So it is incredibly rapid how fast states are enacting their own legislations. And the reason for that is, of course, tax revenue. You can tax it and profit and essentially have to do almost nothing other than lightly regulate it and establish a market. And I think you'll also see a lot of states come online in terms of legalizing sports betting a lot faster now as we encounter a pretty unavoidably massive recession, depression that is kind of looming, and states will be left scrambling for additional revenue. I think a lot of the qualms they have over vice and propriety will kind of get thrown out the window because it's an easy way to make tens of millions of dollars in extremely passive revenue for a state and provide a service that many of their constituents want anyway, and help reduce or close a lucrative black market, which of course is unregulated. So I think that's pretty much where we're headed. Looking at my notes here. It's also important to note that sports betting is fairly recession-proof, and while almost every industry will be impacted by an economic downturn, sports gambling and the tertiary industries related to it, including my company, will be impacted far less, as it's pretty proven that sports betting, it's something that people like to do. sports are always played, and as long as sports are being played, sports are being watched. As long as sports are being watched, sports are being bet on. That has always been the case. It always will be the case. And as long as people have a couple dollars in their pocket at all, they will be willing to wager some of that money on sports. It's just how some people, it's the lens through which many people enjoy the sports world, me included. The biggest difference between all the states' various rules as they come online legalizing sports betting is mobile. Is mobile sports wagering legal? This is an important distinction, as mobile wagering from your phone essentially, is what allows you to, when you're within the confines of that state, you're within the state boundaries, you can just make a bet. You can make a bet on your phone the way you can do in Vegas and lots of other places. Because that's the most effective way to cut into a black market. Many states, including New York State, legalize sports betting, but only in brick and mortar casino locations. That is fine. That's fine for many people while they're inside of a casino. It's fine for like big NFL Sundays. But if the goal of legalizing sports betting was tax revenue, you want as many people placing their bets on a legal market that is taxed as possible. So on a regular Wednesday night or a Thursday night football game, or a time when you and your friends are very unlikely to head out to a casino, but are likely to bet on a sporting event, if you can bet mobily from your home through a legal sports book, that money can still get taxed and the state can still profit. If you decide that mobile sports betting is not for you as a state, and you keep it to brick and mortar locations like a casino, you just leave a ton of money on the table, because an individual that loves sports betting is not going to simply skip betting on a Wednesday night, and they're not going to just go, well, I guess I got to get in the car and drive 25 minutes to the casino. They're just going to do so through an illegal market, and that illegal market will continue to thrive. So states that have done full mobile betting, I think, are the savviest. States like New Jersey, Indiana, they are finding themselves with far more money, far faster. And in 2020, that's kind of where sports betting is going. You can also bet mobily within a sports book. Lots of people do that just to avoid the line. So it seems very silly. And I think a lot of states that go brick and mortar locations only will, most of these legislators don't gamble. So I think they'll be surprised to find that they're not making nearly as much money as they expected. Okay, what else? Casino profit. So it's important to note that casinos actually don't make all that much money off of sports betting. Sports betting is a pretty mature market, and it's a pretty fair market as casino games go. It is by far the least profitable per square foot, which is why even on the Las Vegas Strip with mammoth casino floors, the sports books are often not all that large. If a sports book is large, it is considered kind of a loss leader, where you're expecting people to come in, bet on sports, but then go to more profitable centers. So things like blackjack and of course slot machines make economies of scale 10, 100 times more money than sports. Sports is a tiny sliver of the amount of money that a casino makes, particularly by square foot, but just kind of in general, it's really based on the odds and the nature of sports gambling as a mature market. So what do I mean by that? So betting, a straight bet, what we call minus 110 bet, is a 50-50 proposition essentially. The numbers that come after a sportsbook wager indicate what the odds are, and the odds are typically a 3-digit number, and you'll see a minus or a plus in front of that number. A coin flip, if I said a casino said, we're gonna offer odds on heads or tails, the true odds of that are 50-50. So they should offer you plus 100. Plus 100 indicates the amount of money you would win on a $100 bet. Bet 100, win 100, it's 50-50. Bet 100, you lose 100. It's a 50-50 proposition. However, it's a minus 110 wager in this example, where I'd say, two teams are exactly the same, they're playing each other, it's 50-50. They would say, okay, you can take either team, it's minus 110 for either team, which means you have to bet $110 to win $100. The extra $10, if you win all that money back. But if you lose, the extra $10 essentially is the house advantage. So that is the way that the house profits, and that's pretty clear. That's not underhanded. That's the house advantage for offering a sports betting. That's called the juice or the odds against you. So you actually have to go 52.4% in these straight bet scenarios to turn a profit. You can't just go 50-50, you'll end up losing based on that juice. So when people say that sports betting is easy, sports betting is actually very hard in terms of making a considerable amount of money. And individuals who do so for a living, also called sharps or sharp bettors, professional bettors, the opposite of that being squares, the public bettors, amateur bettors. The biggest difference between those two isn't necessarily how well they do. It's that sharps and professional bettors are very disciplined. They bet large sums of money. They make smart and intelligent bets. They don't do a whole lot better, but they don't throw their money away on unintelligent bets, and they're betting at such large volume in terms of the amount of money per bet. They don't vary that money widely, so that when they go 55% over the course of a season, that profit, that tiny 3% over profit they would need over the break-even mark, ends up being tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's really about volume for them. And so any individual that thinks, oh, this guy's a professional gambler, or this guy's very good at gambling, he must win all the time. Pretty much no legitimate professional gambler, no legitimate gambler in the gambling space over any kind of long-term period, multiple seasons, does even 60%. They might go 58%. That would be pretty white hot. So even the very best sports bettors in the entire world are losing more than 40% of the time. So I think that's another big. People just assume that if you're very good at it, you're winning like 9 out of 10 games or whatever. You're a professional. No, there's tons of variables, especially in a game like football. There's 22 men on the field at any one time. There's tons of variance. The markets are very mature. The lines are very good because the casinos want to protect against these larger players. So, if I come and bet. If me and everyone in Wisconsin goes and bets 50 cents on a game, but then one individual comes and bets $1 million, then you can see how they're not necessarily equal. So a casino will make sure to cater those lines, make sure to judge those lines, not necessarily based on what the public will bet, but what the largest and smartest bettors will be betting. So some people will see a line, and that's the other thing to talk about, betting lines. So a spread, or the line, is a good way. The spread takes two teams, and tries to make them equal. So if I said who's really good, the Yankees are really good, and the Detroit Tigers are garbage. So the Tigers and the Yankees are playing. You can say, okay, so one team should be a massive favorite. You might have to bet $300 to win $100 on the Yankees because they're assumed they're going to win. And if you bet $100 on the Tigers, you might win $250. They're seen as a very long shot. But if you said, okay, now the Yankees actually have to win by 2 runs or 3 runs, that's a spread trying to even things out. And you don't really bet spreads in baseball. So a better example is probably a football game where you have a good team and a bad team, but the bad team is getting 7 points. They're getting a touchdown, which means that the superior team, the favorite, has to not only win the game, they have to win the game by more than 7 points in order to secure you a win. So the spread is a very dynamic tool that sports books use to create more action, create a more attractive scenario on which to bet. It was revolutionized by, I believe his name is Charles McNeil, a University of Illinois professor in the 40s. Anyway, it was a massive revelation, and the idea of the betting the spread turned football into something that people like to bet a little bit, into the most popular sports betting phenomenon in the country, something that everybody likes to gamble on because it takes football teams and essentially levels the playing field. The spread is something that's important to note, and it's different from the money line, which is the minus 110, plus 110, the plus minus number, 3-digit number that you often see that indicates how much money you'd have to win. You'd win if you bet 100, or how much money you would need to put up in order to win $100. And that can get a little complicated, but if you know math even a little bit, and I'm no math genius, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to understand how money lines work. Another final thing, I guess, to note, those are called straight bets, just betting one game at a time. There's also things called parlays. Parlays are when you tie multiple bets in together for a multiplied payout. So for example, if I told you we're going to flip a coin, you'd expect 50-50 odds. But if I said I'm going to flip a coin twice and it's going to land on heads twice, the odds of that would be 1 in 4, right? So the odds that you would flip a coin twice and it would go heads, it would go the same thing twice, is 25%. God, I hope that's right. Anyway, you would a parlay is saying, I expect this result and then this other result. So you can bet 2 games simultaneously, you can bet 5 games simultaneously, and you get a magnified payout. Those are not smart things to do. Smart professional bettors never bet parlays. Parlays just take the house advantage and basically multiply it. It's very enticing because it's fun if you think one game is a lock, one thing's the Yankees are definitely going to beat the Tigers. You just tie that in with another bet that you're not sure about, and you get a bigger payout. But it really just exponentially increases your risk of losing. So parlays are often considered sucker bets. Don't worry, I do them all the time. They're incredibly exciting because I'm an amateur bettor. But ultimately, if you desire to make a profit betting, they're really something to avoid. And there's lots of similar style bets. The best thing you can do is pick sharp lines, make smart bets, don't vary the amount of money that you risk. Stay very disciplined. The best bettors are very disciplined and very agnostic in terms of the teams they bet. They bet numbers, they don't bet teams, and you bet on opportunities. And you do things like you can bet totals, how many points are going to be scored in a game, and those are impacted by things like lineup changes, injuries, and weather, things that most casual fans don't really take into account. So anyway, I hope this was very helpful. Enjoy your time in your respective quarantines. Please enjoy the fact that you're not with a 3-year-old and a 2-week-old child. That is a bummer. I haven't had booze in quite some time, and it would sure come in handy. So anyway, you guys have a good time, and I'll talk to you soon.